Good to go.
Great. We're now at the sort of time here, so let's kick off the session. So good morning to some of you, good afternoon to others, and welcome to the 2021 Wednesday webinar and roundtable series. My name is Tanis Braco. I'm the Director of Sales, Marketing, and Product Development at Manitoba Hydro. So for the best experience here, we recommend the use of headphones. The platform is optimized for the Google Chrome browser, so we recommend that you use Chrome. And also please note that any attendees, you can use phones or tablets to access the plenary sessions as a listen-only attendee, but to access the virtual navigation bar and session features, you must be logged in on a computer. So how to participate in the session today. On the left side of your screen, you will find the session chat. You may participate through typing questions or responses. Attendees who have connected their mic and webcam may also indicate that they would like to participate. Please wait until you are called upon to unmute and join the conversation. Webcams are optional, but very much encouraged. If you have not connected your mic, you can find the Roundtable connection guide under Help Guides in the virtual navigation bar. So for our session today, along with myself, we have Jared Hyland, the Operations Manager at Fortis BC, who will be helping moderate the sessions.
Thank you, Tanis. Hi, everyone. It looks like we have a fairly small, intimate group today. So like Tanis said, my name is Jared Hyland. I'm an operations manager at Fortis BC, based out of Kamloops, British Columbia, which is about 4 hours north of Vancouver, for those who don't know the interior that well. So this is a highly interactive roundtable, and really it's a great opportunity to hear what different utilities across the country are doing. It's one that I really enjoy. I was a part of it at the virtual OEIC conference in February. I just really enjoy hearing from other utilities, and we're in the same business, but we all do things, 5% different across the board. So it's really good to share notes and share ideas. And that's essentially what the whole purpose for this is. So I do have a list of preloaded questions that were submitted on during the registration. So I appreciate all those that submitted some questions. And really, if there's any other things you want to bring up, discuss, just please put in the chat, and we can essentially talk about anything that we want to here. One reminder, I did see a couple questions regarding hydrogen. I am not proficient in hydrogen, so I won't touch on that today, but there is a webinar series on the September 15th that it's primarily a focus for that one. So I suggest attending that next edition of the webinar series. With that, I think we can jump right into the questions. Kick them off. So question one, and again, this is open for everyone. What utilities, or what are we doing as utilities going to meter bypasses given the challenges with COVID and entering homes? Everyone has seen the impact COVID has had with entering customers' homes, rightfully so. So are we moving toward meter bypass sets on residential sets and across the board? For Fortis, we do have a program in place. We've had it for the last 7 or 8 years, where we are installing bypass valves on the inlet and outlet of each residential set. But what are other utilities doing? Really, I'm going to throw to the group. Primarily, the whole focus here is the attendees here. So please speak up, and please share what your companies are doing in this regard. Trust me, you don't want me to speak for 50 minutes here. So, and we can always circle back too. So that's just keep that one in mind. The first handful of questions here are COVID related because it is such a big focus of our industry at the moment, as well as across the world, obviously. A second or follow-up question is how are we making changes, how we contact customers? What impact to operations has there been with customer relations? You know, as well with Fortis, and I'll just give the Fortis perspective to kick it off. We have been asking the screening questions. We want to make sure that any employee that shows up to a residence is aware of any illness in the household or if recent travel as well. So we are asking if there's anyone sick within the household, have they traveled recently, primarily out of the country, but also out of province, and if they're comfortable with us entering the home. So is there any other questions that other utilities are asking as far as screening goes, or how has the contact center been affected by COVID? Also, Tanis, feel free to jump in if you have relevant answers here. Okay, we're just getting warmed up here. So why don't we move to the next one?
I did make a note in the chat too that if there are other pertinent questions, you know, these questions were sent in advance, but if there's other more pertinent questions that people want to discuss, please either throw it in the chat or connect to your audio and we can discuss.
Yeah, thanks for that. Okay, how about next slide, Tanis? I'll ask the bottom one first. COVID, it has made us adjust how we do our day-to-day business in the field. What's an easy win that we've seen with implementing something COVID related to keep our customers and employees safe in the field? One thing for Fortis is we did roll out a video call app or program with the customer, which was a big learning curve, both in-house and for our customers. I know other utilities are farther down the road with video chat, video communication with customers, and this was our first kick at the can, so to speak, with implementing video chat with our customers. It was a big success on Vancouver Island, which is relatively surprising given the demographic of the island. I'll leave it at that. But it was a good chance to not have to enter the home if the appliances were electronic ignition, for example. So is there any other easy wins that we've seen in the field when it comes to COVID adjustments for operations?
Hi, it's David McConkey here at the CGA. I'll just pipe in for a couple of reasons. One, to provide some response to the question there, but also to welcome everyone and encourage everyone to connect their mics. I think I'm reading the icon correctly, where if you see a little mic, then that means you're connected and you're able to speak, and you just need to unmute yourself. And I see a number of extra people have connected that. That's excellent. If you see just the headset, it means you're only able to listen and you're not able to speak. And to Jared's point earlier, our hope is that we have an interactive discussion here. So just take a moment to connect your mic. I see some people are doing that. That's great. And then we can just have a nice free-flowing discussion. But I'll just comment a little bit on the topic there. I know a number of other organizations have done something similar in terms of the video kind of app where you can receive instructions for doing a relight and doing some some kind of basic work, so that physical proximity between the employee and the customer just doesn't need to take place because it's being done remotely. I know that a few of our organizations have done that. Another thing that was raised recently was just in terms of policies around how do I say it? Vaccination status. So I know that some, it's kind of gone both ways in terms of the customer and the utility worker. In some cases, the customer is requesting, a utility worker who has been vaccinated and has kind of put restrictions around there. So I know that some organizations, have developed some policies around how to manage those interactions, those questions, while protecting the privacy of the employees. And then in some cases, it's been the other way around, where the utility worker has kind of wanted to be assured of safety relative to that when visiting the customer. So there's some delicate issues there, but very important. And I know that a number of organizations are kind of developing policies, kind of facing some of these questions, and there's some really important issues there that are kind of being worked out as things evolve. So just some observations from my perspective, and now I can let others speak that have connected their audio.
Yeah, that's great, David. That's interesting. I personally haven't heard of customers requesting vaccinated workers, but that's pretty logical in my view. Yeah. Anybody else want to share an easy COVID win? I know that's a bit of an oxymoron, but anything that we've developed out there? No. Okay, well, next question topic. What new metrics are being used to advance safety and reliability in operations? I can share an example with Fortis. We have much better tracking as far as driving stats go. So we're receiving weekly reports of seatbelt use, speeding, obviously, harsh cornering, harsh braking, those standard driving metrics, and that's been a real eye-opener for us. It's pretty valuable information to receive on a weekly basis, just to know they don't give too detailed, but it's just a high overview of because we are essentially rolling logos out on the street. Every vehicle is deckled with us, so it's good to know that those decals are driving responsibly. So again, I'll throw out to the group. Any other metrics that's been developed in the last couple of years that we want to share? Or David, from a CGA point of view?
Yeah, and maybe we can invite individuals to comment as well. Sometimes being called upon is a good opportunity to just to give your input. Maybe Joseph or Kevin or David Coleman. Any thoughts on this? So maybe I'll just start off. So from the CGA perspective, We have our Brad. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was just gonna make a joke, David. You named 3 people. If you want to call somebody out, you can only name one. Too many options.
I know. I sat on the fence there.
Sorry.
Brad, go ahead.
I did have a COVID-related question, or not question, but kind of discussion point. So, in some provinces, the need to go into a home is driven by, well, in all provinces is driven by one of 2 things, and in some provinces is driven by 2 things. One, the policy of going into a home after changing a meter, for example, was driven by the fact that once upon a time, every appliance had a standing pilot light, and you can't just turn gas back on and flood a building with gas. The other end, and things were, all appliances had very few, if little, safety controls. Fast forward to today, that's a completely different story. And so and the other of the 2 drivers behind having to go into a home after changing a meter is the safety authority. The provincial safety authority says you have to do that and inspect everything to the gas utilization code, etc. So I know the situation here in Ontario, but I'm curious to hear from the table what the situation is across Canada and other provinces. In what provinces does this provincial safety authority require you to go back into a home, or is it just your own utility policy to go back into a home after changing a meter? Because COVID exposed our weaknesses around all of that, and it makes operation workload planning extremely difficult because you don't know what work you have to do, but you don't know when you can do it. And you also have Measurement Canada requirements that require you to remove meters before a certain date. So I was just curious what the national picture looks like around the provincial safety authority and what utility company policies are outside of Ontario. If anyone has any feedback on that.
I can speak for Fortis and what we're doing. If we've always had customers in the past that are well versed, either gas fitters themselves or just know their equipment, and if they're comfortable relighting their equipment, we have left it at that. We do leave the gas off, or we will leave it on if they're at home and they can do it right then. That's essentially the only opportunity. We do ask customers if they are comfortable relaying their own appliances, and if they say no, then yes, we are going in, regardless if we have to put that off if there is an illness in the household. The Measurement Canada aspect was, that's a big chunk of our business. We have seen some flexibility going into 2021, and I'm curious to know what that will look like for 2022. I don't know that personally myself as of yet. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
So Jared, you're saying in BC, the BC Safety Authority requires the utility to go back into the house. That's not just a Fortis BC policy, but the Safety Authority requires you to go back and do an inspection and do the relight?
I don't know that 100%. I do know there's instances where we don't. So I would only assume that that's not a requirement. There is cities in BC that the safety authority don't operate. They have a city gas inspector, right. And quite large communities at that. So I don't think it's a blanket across the board. I will say if they're at all uncomfortable, obviously, yes, we are going inside. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you breaking the ice, Brad. Nice.
Yeah, because like today with most stuff, if you interrupt the gas, you change the meter, you turn the gas back on, there's no pilot light to relight. The worst case scenario is the water heater or the furnace will lock out. So the processor of the appliance will attempt to relight 3 times, and if it fails, it'll go into a lockout. But to reset it, you just flick the power switch on and off, and it'll try another 3 times. And customers can do that until the air has been purged from the line and everything's fine.
Mhm.
And I'm just curious from a national perspective, if utilities in an effort to find efficiencies in operations are lobbying their safety authorities to see if it's possible to do away with having to go back into the home on every meter exchange and with the modern safety features on gas equipment.
Mhm. No, that's an excellent point, and I think these questions are coming to the forefront with COVID, obviously.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Brad, this is Dave Coleman, Manitoba Hydro. Excellent question. We've been looking in the last year at meter set bypasses, kind of going back to that first question, and looking at various types. Like our piping systems are configured to use those meter exchange bypass kits. If you know, kind of like the meter bag and tank.
Yep.
So on the outlet of the meter, there's a plug. So we kind of got away from that over the last 15 years or so, but this year we've started to resurrect that equipment. But then we also looked at other products on the market. I think
Yeah, there's a
Fortis is
lot
using,
these days. Yeah.
yeah, the Jomar valves are one that's probably the most attractive to us. We've talked to Fortis about it and their experience, and but it came back to we want to do some piloting coming up this fall with that product and testing. But it does come back to what is our safety authority, because once you start using these products,
Right.
you don't need to go back into the house.
Right.
So that's something we're going to have to investigate with our regulators here, the Office of the Fire Commissioner.
Right. So another
that-
interesting approach has been that on average, some gas technician, some licensed certified gas technician will touch every appliance every so many years, right? So do you put the onus of the utilization code aspect back on whatever technician from whatever company touches those appliances?
Yeah, we haven't got there yet, but I think that's part of the conversation with our regulators. And like you said, the appliances are way better now. They have safety features, they're electronic ignition. And that's something we also want to try piloting. We did a CGA survey just back in July about what other utilities practices are for relighting, and kind of leaning more towards questions on the electronic ignition and what are their practices. And 2 utilities replied that they do in the non-heating season dial tests. So they do a pre-dial test just to make sure there's no pilots running. So if on your meter you look to see, 5-10 minutes, is the meter moving? Okay, it's not moving, it's non-heating season, I got no standing pilots. They go ahead, change the meter, and then after the meter's changed, do another pilot, a dial test, and if that holds, you got no leaks in the system, no leaking valves or things like that. And that's something that we've been contemplating, and we'll probably start piloting that as well next year as we move towards these other questions we need to answer about going inside the buildings. Is that a obligation we need to do?
Interesting. Yeah, the only other way to do it is if, for decades you've been logging what kind of appliances are in customer homes. So that would be a nightmare.
Yeah,
we're not there.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if someone was there. That would be interesting to see. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, David. One question. Yeah, you're right. We do use Jomar valves with Fortis, and the cycle is starting to come back from the original installs. So the number of, and it's a soft bypass set, as you know. We have a regulator set up just on the inlet side, just off the inlet side. Those tanks, I've heard quite a bit about it. I've never seen it in practice. We don't use it here in BC. How big are those tanks and what type of regulation is required when you have that in the vehicle?
Yeah, that's some of the stuff. I'm trying to remember. There's different ones on the market. They're commercially available. I guess we kind of go to the small end. So they're really good for the non-heating season. Like you can't, in the heating season, you're not going to be able to have the capacity.
Right.
I'm trying to think if it was 23 or something in the order of 25 cubic feet, I think is what the small ones have. But there are all kinds of TDG regulations that you need to have. Like we put them in a secure cabinet in the van, and we also have that cabinet vented outside. but there's all kinds of TDG requirements. We're kind of just resurrecting and making sure we comply that these cabinets and the tank itself will comply with those regulations. If it gets knocked around, you don't end up with a leak inside your vehicle.
Okay.
Lots of challenges, but there is a website, PLCS. They're a company that sells out those kits. They're from the States, PLCS.
And so what kind of fitting is, and sorry for my ignorance, but what kind of fittings on the outlet side for that? Is it just like a
Just
needle?
a plug.
Yeah, okay.
Just a plug. So there's kind of a bag system. Can't share a screen or video right now, but yeah, there's kind of a bag. It's a bag system, so you'd kind of put that around the outlet, the T on the outlet of your meter. You unscrew the plug, let that drop into the bag, insert your probe. The
Oh, I
probe
see.
cuts off supply, open up your tank, and you maintain supply to the customer.
Okay.
It's probably, I guess the drawback, it's really for the non-heating season. The tanks just don't have the capacity.
Right. Interesting.
But they pay for themselves. We figured after about 60 to 100 visits, they're paid for themselves.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that does open up a bigger discussion around ownership. You know, what really are, and liability is what are utilities responsible for? And if we're not owning customer piping, you know, is that really our responsibility to get eyes on customer appliances? No, that's good. Good discussion. Okay, Tanis, maybe the next couple.
I'll just briefly make mention of the Measurement Canada initiative to implement kind of allowances relative to meter exchanges. About 12 months ago, a task team was put together with operators and on the vendor side to develop some policies around you know, the length of the verification periods, kind of giving some allowances so that, like we've been saying, operationally it's difficult to plan, it's difficult to meet your, you know, obligations relative to the Measurement Canada requirements. If you don't know if you can get into people's, you know, residences and do the work that you need to do. And so the Measurement Canada created some significant allowances to account for that, and I think they were used quite well over the past year, and I believe that that's ongoing at this stage.
That's good. Okay, so this top one I threw in myself. In the BC interior, we had a very difficult summer as far as forest fires go, and we did learn a lot, especially in my area here. So with it only seems to be getting worse. Floods and fires, they're only intensifying. Sorry. So what kind of learnings and improvements have we seen operationally for these events? A couple things with us. We have started using fire trailers more. We're starting to look at purchasing and rentals when supply is low or when there's multiple fires going on, and we essentially just fill a big tank with the water and retardant mixture, and we're spraying assets. We're spraying the perimeter of gate stations and high pressure stations. It works amazingly well. I have some pictures. We did lose a small community here, about 45 minutes away from Kamloops. It was about 36 customers, I believe, and it's amazing. The perimeter of that station was it was just a farm tap, but the station was totally untouched. Even pine needles not burnt, and you know, a couple of centimeters outside that spray area is just charcoal. So it was a real eye-opening experience for me. Also, the overlays of the fire tracking on Google Earth is incredible. So we were getting hourly updates just with heat. The satellites, I believe they were NASA. Don't quote me on all this stuff, but we could track fires as the day progresses. Aside, other than as compared to the provincial site, which is great because that's what they're basing the evacuation alerts and orders on. But it's only updated once a day. So 8 a.m. we have a good picture from the provincial site, and then we are using the Google Earth overlays for the rest of the day to see how fast it's moving and what we have to do. So what else, or what have other utilities kind of dealt with this summer, and what are we learning? Because this is emergency response is a massive undertaking for us, especially as utility companies. So please share anything that you've learned or experiences that you've had over a hot, dry summer. No takers. Okay.
It's David. I'm curious if anyone from ATCO is online relative to the obvious learnings with Fort Mac a few years back. Is anyone from ATCO on? If your audio is not connected, you can throw something in the chat. Possibly not.
Yeah, the hot, dry summer was definitely applicable to the western part of the country. So maybe we don't have anyone to speak to that.
Okay, no, that's okay. We'll move on. So equipment companies are using during planned or unplanned outages, temporary reg stations, temporary supply, strategic backfeeding. Does anyone want to speak on this? This one, I'm going to start calling out names. I might have to. One second. I'm not sure if, so Andrew from Sask Energy submitted this. I'm not sure if he's on the line. No, not on the line.
Jared, it's David again from Hydro. I'm on the engineering side, so I don't have all the details, but I know during some small outages, our operations people will take the gas supply from the customer next door and feed the customer that's out. I can always get, if there's specific details, I can always find out how those connections are made, but that's a temporary supply they do in some cases.
Interesting. So that's on the distribution pressure side?
Yeah, from one meter to another.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
That's how we used to do it at Union Gas too, a very long time ago. I don't, like over 20 years ago. I don't know what policy there is now.
Thanks, Brad. I see Kevin is typing. I'll just wait a moment.
I know that it's David. I know that some organizations have some LNG that's kind of dispatchable to some degree. Am I right that in Manitoba, when there was a significant outage, I think that you guys had some LNG trailers that came in to support?
Yeah, I can speak to this actually. So at Manitoba Hydro, we did build compressed natural gas stations. So it was actually CNG, David. we had a very large outage experience by actually TCPL outage on their pipeline. So after that, the corporation decided to build its own CNG station with the main purpose to supply our own system in the event that we lost supply from TransCanada. But we have used it in other ways, some sort of creative ways. I don't know if Kevin Morgenstern wants to speak to this. I think he was involved with, we were doing some pressure testing on a pipeline. We knew there was a leak, and so we ended up using our CNG trailers to inject some gas into the pipeline to find that leak, and we have used it for, particularly to fix some transmission lines that are one-way feeds and supplying towns that are downstream of where we need to isolate and repair pipelines. So it's been really useful.
And Tanith, that equipment's in-house?
Yeah,
Oh,
owned and
okay.
operated by Manitoba Hydro. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. We used temporary CNG supply, but only from a third-party company.
Third party, right.
Only 3 instances that I'm aware of in the interior. Same situation, trying to keep a mill going when the line's under maintenance, and also when we had a bit of an issue with the Enbridge line a couple of years ago. We were scrambling to find out what we could do to keep towns going. So Kevin also mentioned Liberty Utilities uses emergency district, bypasses strategic backfeeding where practical, and CNG feed for next week. So that's pretty interesting. I believe there's a little bit of discussion starting within Fortis to build some skids, kind of like what you're mentioning out in Manitoba. So I think that's a pretty viable alternative, and the unexpected happens, so we should be prepared, because the companies we were using, I believe they're from Alberta. And in fact, I know they're from Alberta. So the lead time is not always quick, especially if it's an emergency situation. So, okay, that's good.
Jared, this kind of raises a measure that I'm aware of that was utilized during the recent Hurricane Ida that impacted New Orleans, and it's really not answering the question, but it's kind of a completely related question. I know that I was doing a bit of research on this. In 2018, the electric company that supplies New Orleans built I think it's 183 megawatt natural gas powered generating station to serve a number of purposes, but one of them was, when there is an emergency situation, that they can operate as an island from an electric standpoint. And they did that in the most recent Hurricane Ida. And so there were some transmission issues, so they couldn't connect their system with the transmission network around them, but they were able to generate their own power for their customers using natural gas, so that their customers can have something while they're making the reparations required. So it's not really what we're talking about, but it's from a electric standpoint, just emphasizing the value of natural gas in those kind of scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. And repair time in that case, like who knows? Like I don't know enough about it, but it could be up to a month, I would assume, depending on the severity and the damage involved. So yeah, any use for natural gas, obviously we're all interested in that. And if it's a very practical resource, then that's a win. It's a win for our industry for sure. Okay, let's see what else we have. Okay, this one was also submitted. How does your company manage after-hour emergency response? Do you have a contractor or construction crews as part of your standby schedule? Fortis BC, yes, we do have construction crews on in the Lower Mainland where the vast majority of our customers are based. There is a construction crew on standby year-round. In the interior, it is primarily in the summer months. It'll start, I believe, April 1st through the end of October, maybe into November, depending on the weather. It does weather, and the digging window does drive a lot of our planning as far as after-hour response. For us, there is extremely little contractor use for standby schedule in the far east interior for us, close to the Alberta border. I believe that there is a contractor that used very sporadically, but the union does have a strong stance on union employees primarily as being on standby. So it's very infrequently we'll have a contractor being used for after-hour standby, but that's just us. So is that the same across the board, or what other alternatives or arrangements are being made with the different utilities? Or is that just essentially what everyone is, the setup everyone has?
Yeah, Jared, at Manitoba Hydro, we it's all in-house really for the emergency response. We don't really keep our contractors or construction contractors on standby. We might have some contacts, so in the middle of the night or something, or over say Christmas break, we might want to have some emergency contacts if something significant happened. We would do that with our contractor, but they're not on standby for us.
Right. Yeah, if we have a very large outage, we will employ contractors to help us with shutdowns and relights after. But that's primarily the extent of emergency use of contractors for us. Similarly, when it regards to the leak survey, in-house versus contractor, but two-part question. I'll start with this. In-house versus contractor, we're about 75% contractor compared to 25% in-house for leak survey. Again, the Lower Mainland for us is primarily contractor. We do have leak survey techs, but it's just a handful for a very large area. So they're more focused on specialized work, high risk areas. We keep the contractor out of there. Confirming leaks, leak rechecks. That's essentially the scope of the in-house leak technicians. And one thing I am interested, because I am quite involved with the leak survey program with Fortis, how our leak survey frequency is determined. So we just had a bit of a review here. So for us, and please let me know if it's different elsewhere. Our residential cycle is 5 years, and essentially everything else is yearly on the distribution side. So anything deemed business or special use, which I think everyone's familiar with, that could be arenas, care homes, hospitals, anything in that regard, that's on a yearly cycle. So we just had a review to see if we want to change those, and we're fairly confident in that cycle, and we're going to keep them the same for the foreseeable future. What's the frequency for leak survey in other utilities?
Hi, Jared. This is Jesse Miller with Sask Energy. I'm also involved, kind of the leak survey manager. I co-lead the program. Yeah, for Sask Energy, we run a 4-year cycle on our entire province. So target approximately a quarter on the distribution side, and as well a quarter on the transmission side. That we do follow as kind of a same plan for the higher risk customers, or our industrial commercial customers. Those are on an annual cycle. So our annual intermediate and elevated pressure systems in our major cities as well is targeted as well. So that's our plan survey, and then we do obviously a supplemental survey, and which is our targeted higher risk type of survey in our major cities, targeting assets that have known higher leak rates.
Okay, so thanks, Jesse. So that approach is more for areas as opposed to the type of structure or building that it feeds?
Yeah, for the supplemental survey, we know some of our assets are obviously part of our older system, dresser mechanical fittings that are 60, 70 years at their end of their life cycle. We target those areas with our supplemental survey, which typically happens in the winter months. And then our plan survey follows that kind of same timeline of April 1st to October 31st. It's kind of our time frame for that one.
Yeah, likewise. That's great. And in-house versus contractors, what are you doing in that regard?
Mostly contractor. I would say probably 85 to 90% contractor. The only part that is in-house is our stations. Obviously, increased PPE is required, higher risk areas. Those are all in-house. And then on our stations, as part of our fugitive emission survey, the Method 21 survey on our compressor stations, that's also done by contractor, however, with employee supervision, as we use a FLIR camera and things like that. And then on the repair side of things, a large majority is in-house. Obviously, our construction crews are majority employees as well. We're also union-based on that side of things. And then with a few contractor crews throughout the summer to help with some other maintenance items or new services. But most of it is in-house as well.
Okay. You have contractor crews repairing leaks?
If need be. But again, they're definitely not our standard or our first go-to. It's mostly done in-house.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
How is that? Actually, it's going to go into the next question, so I'll save it for that. But I will call on you here shortly. Emergent technologies being trialed for survey. So Jesse, you mentioned that heat camera. When did that get implemented, and how are you finding that?
Well, I'm not the facilitator of that survey, as that's done by our maintenance department. But we did, our department, I'm part of the integrity group. We did write the construction and maintenance practice for that. And 2019, we had brought in that as the federal government was implementing the methane fugitive emissions into code. So we started doing that. I believe it was 2020, the spring 2020, we started doing that. And then on our planned and supplemental survey side, we actually just fully implemented the use of a mobile guard, ABB mobile guard unit, which is being used by one of our contractors. And we're seeing some promising results out of that unit, as it's able to provide a coverage area, increased efficiencies a lot quicker on that side, as we're only sending in walking surveyors in areas where the coverage area couldn't reach or the unit couldn't reach. And then we're obviously investigating all of the higher leak indications by walking surveys as well, 24 to 48 hours after they're found. And yeah, we're seeing some promising results out of that. And then another one of our contractors also has a mobile unit, which actually is a flame ionization unit, which also has seen, our initial results has seen to be about the same sensitivity as a mobile guard unit in that parts per billion type of range. So we're actually seeing, we're actually finding some lower leaks when they're a lot less hazardous, where they're in that lower parts per million type of range, in the 10s or 20s instead of in the hundreds or thousands, which is some of the ones we found in the past. So yeah, we're seeing some promising results on those sides.
Okay. And the thermal, is that handheld or is that drone? What
like I said, I don't know a ton about that survey
Okay.
on that side. I believe it's just a handheld camera. I
Okay.
don't believe we have started using drones for the compressor station survey. But yeah, I believe that's just the handheld.
Gotcha. One thing that we're talking about, and I've seen a couple examples being used or being trialed, is the satellite methane detection, and that is extremely interesting technology once proven. So that's something that I'm really hoping we get to run to ground with Fortis. Yeah, it looks very interesting. It essentially, the indications come up almost like thermal imaging, because they are color coded depending on severity, and yeah, I'm hoping to get a good crack at a trial with using satellites. I've seen a couple utilities in the south, the states, trying it out. I think it'll be quite a bit of legwork to get it to a compliance level, but if it works, it looks extremely promising.
That's kind of our same experience as well. We've
Okay.
had a presentation as well regarding that technology, and we have a few challenges on our end. Is that we have very much a rural system. I think we have about 90% of our distribution system is in a rural area, and I don't know if some of the challenges is the indication method, or the measurement is a parts per million meter measurement. So as you said, a lot of legwork to get it to a compliance level to where the indication given is how is that trialed out to what they see on the ground. Is it actually a leak, or because it's based on the height column from where the satellite is taking it from, and there's some other challenges there as well. But it would be interesting to see how it progresses and how it comes to fruition over time.
Yeah, absolutely. When I first heard about it, like, what do you mean you can find a gas leak on a meter from space? It doesn't sound logical, but then you see it and you're like, holy, I hope this.
I feel like a lot of that could maybe point towards more of that compressor station or large equipment type of survey, instead of the individual meter sets or individual pipelines you may see in a city or town. I feel like if you're targeting facilities, I think you'd have better luck than you would on just a small distribution system that's running at 20 pounds.
Yeah, 20 pounds. Yeah, you bet. Okay, we do have a couple of minutes left, so I will throw out one last question. What innovations in operational greenhouse gas emission reductions have operation teams identified as the easiest to implement? So I know GHG emission reduction is in everyone's forefront now, and will be for a decade or more moving forward. What type of wins have we seen on that front so far? One thing with Fortis is on the transmission side, so I'm not all that much in the know, is capture during flaring. So I know there's a couple different equipment types out there, and essentially it's just a compressor that's sorry, I'm kind of butchering this, but it's just injecting the gas down the line from where a bypass would be, or where a shutdown or a flare would take place. So that's just one example for Fortis. Quickly, is there anything from anyone else that in this space they want to share? Okay. Well, that's pretty much time. I appreciate everyone who jumped in. Jesse, David, and Brad, for sure. Appreciate it. Appreciate the responses. I hope people get value out of this. I like hearing from from different utilities. If you want to follow up separately, just please reach out. Don't be a stranger. I can answer as much as I can, or direct you in the right to the correct person if I can't answer it. So I appreciate everyone attending today. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and just to add to that, if anyone's interested in continuing conversation, or if there were questions that weren't addressed here, there is the CGA 365 platform. All of you have access to it. We will be sending an email out with a link to that. If you didn't happen to get that link through being registered for the OEIC or GMRS. But there's discussion forum available. There's also existing discussion forum from the OEIC that's on that platform if you want to kind of look through some of the discussions that have already been happening. And then there's also going to be discussion forum coming up for the GMRS on this CGA Member 365 platform. So just want to make sure you're all aware of that. And I think that's it for today, unless there's any last questions before we adjourn for the day. Thank you to our sponsors, of course.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks
Jared.
a lot. Yeah, thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.